and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my February wrap-up. So I don't know where February disappeared to. This month just went by so quickly. I feel like it is a shorter month, so I guess in a way it makes sense. But yeah, it feels like it was only yesterday that I filmed my last wrap-up. So but here we are. So I read 8 things in February, which I am pretty happy with. It has been a busier month with me having to work extra, and like I said, it's a shorter month as well, so 8 things I feel like is pretty good. Most of them are kind of short, but like still, I finished or read 8 things. I am pretty happy with that, and I also completed all my bookish bingo prompts for February, so I'm happy. It's not going to be my best reading month of the year, but that was expected, so it's all good. So let me just go through my bookish bingo prompts first and the books that I read for them. The first prompt that I got was to read a book from an author I've read from before, and for this prompt I decided to read The Dream by Harry Bernstein. This is the sequel to The Invisible Wall, which I read back in December, I think. So these books are memoirs. In the first book we follow Harry as he is a child, and in this second book here we pretty much continue the story where the first one left off, and in this one we're following Harry and his siblings as they grow up. It starts off with Harry's around 12, I think. So I just really enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed this just as much as the first one. I don't really want to say anything about what this book is about because I feel that could spoil the first book in case anyone is interested in this duology, I guess. It's just a very engaging story. When I'm reading this, I always want to continue finding out what's going to happen with Harry and his family. And the first book in this duology, The Invisible Wall, apparently it was the author's debut book, and it came out when he was 96 years old. So that is kind of cool. I guess it goes to show that it's just never too late. So that's kind of a cool detail in this as well. But yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars, which is the same rating that I gave the first book. So I just really enjoyed this, and I'm just happy to have read it because this has been on my bookshelf for so many years. I'm just glad to finally have read it, and yeah, I enjoyed it. The second prompt that I got was to read a book that I acquired in 2019 or later. And for this prompt I decided to read Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. So this book is the 3rd book in the Diviner series. So in this book we're following our main group of characters as they're trying to sort of uncover the mystery, the overarching mystery, I guess, that has become more and more of a focus in this series as it's progressing. So we're just learning more and more about what's going on and what has been going on in the past, and I don't really want to say much more than that because I feel like with the 3rd book in a series we're really just going to go into spoiler territory. So there's a main group of characters in these books, which I mentioned before. I really like this group. It's a very diverse group of characters. They're also kind of all over the place, I feel like, a little bit. I don't always understand their actions, but again, I don't want to get too much into that because spoilers. The pacing felt a little bit off in this one to me. At times the story feels a little rushed, and at other times it just felt like it dragged maybe a little bit. There's just a lot of characters in this series, and there's a lot going on, and sometimes I'm not really sure I understand what's going on or if I'm meant to understand what's going on. The random POV changes is still a thing in this one, and it's still very annoying to me. I've mentioned that before, so I won't go into it anymore here. But overall I am still really enjoying this series like I have with the first books as well. The author continues to do just an amazing job with the setting and the atmosphere, and just letting us get a feel to I guess the political climate at the time. And if this book is anything, or this series is anything to go by, that is kind of depressing. And I just feel like the setting and the atmosphere, and also the characters, I guess, are just the strongest things about this book. So it does have some flaws, or the series does have some flaws, but overall I am still enjoying this. So I think I'm going to give it the same rating that I gave the second book in the series, which is 3.5. That feels pretty accurate to me. The first one I gave 4 stars, so I think that one is still my favorite one in the series, but yeah, still really enjoying this. So I'm curious to be reading the final book in the series. I put it on my March TBR, so I'm hoping to get to that one in March. So then I got the prompt to read a book that was released this year, and I didn't actually have any like full-length novels and that was released this year at the time that I filmed my February TBR. So I decided to read some short stories from the giveaway that I got a lot of books from, or a lot of novellas / short stories from back at the beginning of January. So I said in my TBR video that I was planning to read at least 2 stories, and I was hoping to get to more than that. I only got to 2 stories, which is fine. I completed the prompt, but yeah, I was hoping to get to some more. I wasn't able to do that. So the stories that I did read was A No Big Deal by Mia Monroe and Ring in the True by Quinn Ward. So No Big Deal by Mia Monroe, it's a fake dating romance where one of the characters sort of accidentally ends up spending a family weekend with the other main characters, and the entire family just assume that they're dating, even though at that point they've basically just met each other. So I guess my main complaint, you might say, with this book is the same thing that I felt with a lot of the other short stories and novellas that I read lately. It just feels a little bit rushed, and in this case also kind of insta-lovey, which I don't always mind, but with this book just feeling rushed in general, I just didn't quite feel the romance, I guess in a novella or a short story you only have time to do so much, but I guess I just need more fleshed out characters, more time to just see the connection between them grow, and just more time to feel the connection between them, which I didn't really get in this one. And I pretty much had the same feelings about Ring in the True by Quinn Ward. In this book we get the brother's best friend trope. So our 2 main characters in this one, they had a thing when they were younger, and now they meet again for the wedding of one of the characters' brother, the other character's best friend. And this one felt maybe even more rushed than the other short story that I mentioned. So I didn't really feel the chemistry or the romance in this one. I was, however, quite liking the writing style, and I would be interested to read more like full-length novels by this author, because I think I might like them. But yeah, I ended up giving both of these novellas 3 stars. They were just kind of middle of the road for me. Not bad or anything, but just not quite my favorite either. So the next prompt that I got was A to C, and the letter that I randomly picked out was R. So I decided to read Recursion by Blakey. And I ended up filming a separate reading vlog for this, which I guess was sort of a reading vlog / review. So I'm not going to talk much about this book here. You can watch that reading vlog if you're interested in hearing what I thought about the book as I was reading it. So this is a sci-fi thriller that I ended up really enjoying. It kept me interested the whole way through. It was pretty confusing, but mostly in a good way. And it also ended up having what I thought was a really satisfying ending. So yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it. So the final prompt that the bingo gave me was to read a book with a person or people on the cover. And for this prompt, I read The Latest Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. This was my buddy read with Lana. We read this book in the first week of February, and we just had a lot of fun discussing this book afterwards. And I think I ended up liking this one maybe a little bit more than Lana did. I overall found this pretty enjoyable, even though it definitely had its flaws. So this is a female-female historical romance. We have our 2 main characters, Lucy and Catherine. And Lucy, she is a scientist. She is really into astronomy. She used to work with her father, who has now passed away. And then when Catherine is looking for someone to translate a very famous French astronomy text into English, Lucy is just eager to take on the job, and that's how the two of them meet. So there's a lot going on in this story, maybe a bit too much, because this book kind of felt more like historical fiction with some romance in it rather than an actual romance. And like, even though I quite liked the themes and the topics that were sort of introduced outside of the romance, I didn't really feel like everything was resolved very well. Things were kind of randomly introduced sometimes and then not really mentioned again, or it was just over very quickly. And it wasn't really given enough time, I felt like. So, I mean, this book it was a bit all over the place. There was also a conflict, I guess, in the romance that was resolved towards the end, and it was resolved in a way that it wasn't really that satisfying, I felt like, or I guess it maybe just felt a little weird. So yeah, I did have some issues with this one, even though it was overall a good experience. I had a good time reading this. I initially gave it 4 stars. After sitting on it a little bit, maybe it's more of a 3.5. It's around there somewhere. So yeah, I had fun with this one. I enjoyed reading it, but it was definitely not perfect. The writing, I felt like, was pretty good, but yeah, this had some flaws. But overall, it was just a fun experience, especially because of the body read and the discussion we had afterwards, because that was a lot of fun. And then we have the things that I read that was not on my Bookish Bingo TBR. I read 2 more things that was not on my TBR. And the first thing that I read was A Grumpy Bear by Slade James, which is a romance, and I absolutely love this one. This is the first book in a series called Bear Camp. I read the prequel to this one back in January, and I really liked it, so I wanted to start reading this series. The first book was published at the end of January. So this book, or this series, I guess, takes place at a camp or resort called Bear Camp. And this place, or this camp, it's a place for gay men, and it's a clothing optional camp, which means that there is a lot of nudity in this book, and there is a lot of description of like body parts, I guess, which probably makes this book sound kind of out there, but I mean, it's really not. Or maybe it is, but if so, it's in the best possible way. So in this book we meet one of our main characters, Luke, and he is an inspiring musician. And at the beginning of this book he is in a pretty bad place. He is practically homeless. He has just arrived in a new town or a new place to sort of try his luck. But he's kind of desperate to just get some money or get some work. So when a new acquaintance of his, Austin, tells him that he is headed out to a place called Bear Camp to work for the season, Luke kind of decides to join him to see if maybe he can get just some work for the weekend or something, because it's the beginning of the season, and according to Austin there's always a lot to do in this first weekend. So Luke is just hoping to get some work, basically, in order to survive. And then they get to the camp and they meet the owner, Sawyer, and he is the person that the title Grumpy Bear is referring to, because he is the kind of person who just comes across as very grumpy, basically, and kind of scary, I guess. He's the kind of person, he just doesn't talk much. He has sort of unapproachable vibe to him. And I don't really want to say much more than that. This is a romance between Luke and Sawyer. It is wonderful. The characters, all the characters in this book, both the main characters and the side characters, they were just great. They were well fleshed out. I may mention that there is not a single female character in this book. I mean, so that is a thing. There's just a lot of guys, basically. Yeah, the setting just felt very vivid. Bear Camp really just came alive for me through this book. The romance is a opposites attract romance that just really worked. The characters initially felt very different from each other, but you know, as the story progressed and the romance sort of developed between them, you just see how they fit together so well. There's also a lot of Lord of the Rings references in this book, which is just never a bad thing in my opinion. So I mean, I love this. And this is the author's debut novel. So if he continues writing books like this, I will just read everything he writes, because this was great. It was wonderfully written. The characters were amazing. The setting was great. I mean, everything was just kind of perfect about this book. This was the kind of book that I just never wanted to put down, and when I did put it down, I just looked forward to the next time I can pick it back up. So yeah, I gave this one 5 stars. It's the first 5-star I've given this year, actually. The next book in the series apparently is going to be about Luke's friend Austin, and I really loved him in this book, so I look forward to that. And yeah, I'm just very, very excited about this book and about the series, and I can't wait to read more. And then we have the last book that I read in February, and honestly I feel a little bit weird talking about it, because at the point that I'm filming this, I actually haven't quite completed it. I have a little bit left of it, but as I'm filming this, it's the 27th of February, so I still have like a day and a half left of the month, and I know that I will finish it before the end of the month, so I am going to talk about it, but I can't actually give it a final rating since I haven't completed it. Like honestly, I had planned to film this video today, and I thought for sure that I would be done with the book by then. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, but I decided to just go ahead and film this video anyway and talk about this book, even though I haven't quite completed it. So the book that I'm talking about here is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I mainly picked this book up because I've heard a lot of good things about it in general, but it was mainly Liz from For Booking Out Loud who was just talking very highly of this book, so I decided to give it a chance. So this book, it's historical fiction. It's mainly set in a reform school for boys called the Nickel Academy, and this is a place that apparently really existed back in the days. So in this book we meet our main character Elwood. He is a black boy who grew up in Tallahassee in the 1960s, and one day he is very unfairly accused of a crime that he had nothing to do with. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time, basically. So he ends up at the Nickel Academy. And the Nickel Academy, it's a bad place, basically, especially for black boys. Like I said, I haven't finished this book yet, so I don't really want to say much more about what it is about. But this is just a tough read, basically. It's just impossible to read this book and not get angry and sad and upset about all the injustice and the unfairness and the racism and just the abuse that these boys suffered. And knowing that this place existed and that these things really happened makes it even more of a powerful read. So I've actually read another book by this author before. I read The Underground Railroad by him. It's been a few years since I read this one, but I just remember not being very fond of the writing style, I guess. There was just something about it I didn't really like. So I guess for that reason I was a little bit hesitant to pick up this one, but this book is great. The things that I may have not liked about the writing style back then, I'm not bothered by now. I think the writing is great. So yeah, I'm not going to give it a final rating. At the moment it feels like a 4-star book, but still things could still happen towards the end. So yeah, it's a tough read, it's a difficult one, but it's also very powerful. So at least so far I would recommend this book for sure. So yeah, I am glad that I picked this up. I'm glad that Liz talked about it so that I had a chance to read this book, because otherwise I am honestly not sure that I would have picked it up, and I will finish it for sure by the end of the month. So that was the 8 things that I read in February. Like I said, I am pretty happy with it overall, even though, you know, it's not my best reading month. It will probably or hopefully be one of the worst reading months of the year for me, but I mean, I expected that, so I'm not too upset about it. And honestly, I read some great books this month. I read a pretty different kinds of books, and I had my first 5-star read as well. So, I mean, I can't be mad about that. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought about it, or if there's any of these that you are interested in reading. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon for another video. Bye!